One of my most popular tutorials is my Excel project management dashboard with nearly 2 million views to date. However, I often get asked if there's a way to switch between viewing the projects by day, week or month. Well, the answer is yes, and in this video I'm going to show you how we can use some old-fashioned form control buttons to create an interactive way to change the period grouping. By the way, you can also use this tutorial to find the formulas required if you only want to view the progress by week or month without toggling from one to the other. Now before we start, I should point out that the formulas I'll be using require Office 2021 or later or Microsoft 365. Alright, let's get started. I'm going to start this tutorial by modifying the original project management dashboard just to save some time. If you'd like to get up to speed, go ahead and complete up to the 25-minute, 20-second mark in the original video that's linked to in the video description. Radio buttons are found on the Developer tab of the ribbon under the Insert drop-down. If you don't have the Developer tab, just right-click on the ribbon and go into Customize, and then make sure it's checked on the right-hand side here, click OK, and it will appear. Now I want my radio buttons to be single select, so I'm going to start by inserting the group box in the form controls, and we're just going to left click and drag to draw it on my spreadsheet. We'll give the group box a name, we'll call it Display Period, and now I can go ahead and add the radio buttons. Make sure you choose them from the form controls, not this one down here under ActiveX. So I want the form control radio button. You also need to make sure it's fully enclosed inside the group box, otherwise they won't be single select. So this one is for the daily period, and then I'm just going to Control and left click, and then holding down Control and Shift, I'm going to drag to copy it twice, and then let's right click and edit the text. This one is weekly, this one is going to be monthly, and let's just align them a bit better. Okay. So with my three buttons inside the group box, I now need to link them to a cell so I know which button is selected. So right-clicking any of them, I can go into Format Control, and then under Cell Link, I'm going to link it to a cell on my working sheet. Up here, I've got a space ready called Display Period. I'll click OK, and now if I select the Daily button, it's showing me 1. Weekly should show me 2, which it does, and monthly shows me number 3. So I can tell from this number which radio button is selected, and we can use that in our formulas. I'm going to name this cell just so that it's easy to reference. So up here in the name box, we'll call this Display Period. Next, I need 3 different formulas for the dates that go across the columns in row 5 to form the timeline. That is 1 to return a list of 26 days, 1 to return a list of 26 weeks, and 1 to return a list of 26 months. Of course, you can specify more or less than 26 dates if required. I'm going to write these formulas in my staging sheets, just where I do my sort of workings so that I can see how they evaluate, and then from there I can bring them together and link them to the radio buttons. So I'm going to use the sequence function, and this is a dynamic array function that's available in Office 2021 onward and for 365 users. So I want one row of 26 columns. Now I want to start at the minimum date that's in my data table. So I'm just going to reference the start date, find the minimum, plus I have a scroll bar in my dashboard, and I need to pick up the position of that scroll bar. It allows me to scroll through the dates in my data. So I'm going to pick up the scroll position, which is in this cell here, close parentheses, and press enter. And I can see it's spilled the dates. It looks correct. It's incrementing by 1 date at a time, starting on the 17th of February. So let's write the next one. This is going to be for the weeks. Again, it's one row of 26 dates, starting at the minimum date in my start date column of my data, plus the scroll position. But this time I want to increment or step by 7 days at a time because I want weekly data. So I'll press enter, and now I have 26 dates incrementing by 7 days at a time. And lastly, I want a list of months. Now this time I'm going to use the date function, And to find the year, I'll use the minimum to find the year in my data start date. That's the first argument. Then I want a sequence of 1 row by 26 columns, starting at 1. So it's going to give me 26 months, and we'll make them all the first of the month. Close parentheses and press enter. So now I have January, February, March, April, May, and so on. Now, if you're familiar with the date function, then you might be wondering how it works with sequence, because there are only 12 months in every year. And if we look at sequence up here, we can see it's returning the numbers 1 through 26. So how is the date function handling month numbers above 12? Well, let's take a look. If we start with the year 2020 and look at month number 18, for example, and day number 1, what actually happens is it returns a date 18 months ahead of the 1st of January 2020. And this allows me to use sequence to return a list of 26 numbers. Clever, huh? Okay, now we have the individual formulas. Let's combine them and link it to the form control. We can use the choose function or the switch function to select the correct formula based on the radio button selected. I'm going to use the choose function in this video because it's more succinct. So I'm going to just convert these formulas to text so that I can easily copy them into my choose formula. So choose, and the index number, remember it's in the cell that I named display period. So choose is going to find out which radio button is selected, and then it's going to return whatever arguments in value 1, 2, or 3. So that needs to be these formulas. Let's just put an apostrophe in front of choose so that it doesn't give me an error. And then I'm going to copy each of these formulas into my choose formula, comma, the next one, comma, and then lastly the date function for the months. Close parentheses on choose. Let me just remove the apostrophe and press enter, and you can see it's evaluating correctly. It's currently returning a list of days, which should be in line with my display period. And if we change it to weekly, it's correctly returning the weeks. So I'm happy with the formula. Let's just copy it, and we'll go into the dashboard, and in this cell here, paste it in. Now let's test it out. There's my months, weeks, and days. So there's a complete formula. However, if you come back to this formula in the coming months or years, it's going to take some time to figure out what it's doing. So we can improve the readability of this formula by using let. So let's wrap it in let. I'm just going to Alt and Enter to wrap the formula down onto the next line. Now let allows me to declare variables and intermediate calculations inside the formula. So what I'm going to do is move each of these individual formulas and declare them as a variable. So this is the formula for my daily dates. So we'll call it daily dates, paste in the formula there, Alt and Enter. Let's go grab the next one. This is going to be my weekly dates, paste it in, comma, Alt Enter, and we'll grab the one for the months, Control X, monthly dates, paste it in, comma, and now all I need to do in the choose function is enter these names that I've declared. So daily dates is first, then weekly dates, and then monthly dates. Close parentheses on let, press enter, and nothing's changed, but I think you'll agree that the formula is much easier to follow when it's broken down into the individual variables. And let's just double check it's still working. It is. Okay, let's take a look at the completed dashboard so that we know what we're working towards. For this dashboard, we're using formulas that result in true or false to specify when the conditional formatting is applied. Now, if you're new to writing conditional formatting formulas, you'll find a link to a detailed tutorial in the video description if you want to learn more. Now, we have 5 different formats for the Gantt chart section of the dashboard. The weekends. At the bottom, we've got this formatting for the grand total row. And then we have the projects not started, the parts that are complete, and the parts that are still in progress. And these last three conditional formats require three different rules. One for the daily periods, one for the weekly periods, and one for the monthly periods. We'll start with the easy formats for the weekends and the grand totals. Let's go back to the file I'm working in. Now the weekend formula just needs to check whether this date falls on a weekend and that we actually have a task on this row, and that the dates up here are daily. If they're weekly, then we're not highlighting weekends anyway. This is only going to apply if the display period is daily. So we'll start with that. If the display period equals 1 and the logical test is the date a weekend? And we can use the weekday function to check if this date, and we're going to use 2 because that will number Monday 1 through Friday 5, and then Saturday and Sunday are 6 and 7, which means we can simply check if the weekday date is greater than 5, it must be a weekend. And lastly, we want to check that the task cell is not empty. Now we need to apply some absolute references here. So this should be F4 to absolute the row, and this one is F4 to absolute the column. So that's my value of true argument. I need to put in a comma, and lastly it's just false. So if the display period is 1 and the value of true evaluates to true, then the formatting will be applied. Otherwise it will return false and we won't get any formatting. So with that entered, I'm just going to select it and Control-C to copy, and then I'm going to select the cells that I want to format. Now I'm just going to go down to the bottom of my pivot table. You will want to allow for growth in your tasks, so you'll want to select more rows, but don't select the whole worksheet because that could make your file quite slow. So with the cells selected that I want to format, I'm going to go to Conditional Formatting, New Rule, and then I want to use a formula, and I'm going to paste it in here, and then on the formatting I'm going to apply a pattern that just puts this diagonal stripe in the weekend dates. I'll click OK and OK, and now we can see where the weekends are. I can delete that formula, I don't need it, and you can see it stops just above the total row, and it does that because there's no task in the task column. Okay, the next conditional format is just to continue this grey line across for the grand total. I'm not even going to bother writing this one in a cell because it's so straightforward. So let's go down to the last row, and I'm going to conditionally format, New Rule, Formula, and in here it's simply checking does this cell here, and I'm going to F4 to absolute just the column, contain grand total. If it does, we want it to put this grey colour in the fill. Click OK and OK, and there's our grand total row. So they're the easy formulas. For the next formulas, I'm going to use the let function because of their complexity. The first formula is for the tasks not started, and it works by checking if the progress is 0 and if the start and end dates fall within the current period. So we'll type it in, and the first thing I want to do is declare my variables. I'm just going to Alt-Enter to go down onto the next row. So I need the current period, which is just going to be this row here, and I want to absolute just the reference to the row, comma. Next I need the start date, and that's this date here, and again absolute the column, comma, end date, which is this one, again absolute the column. We want the duration complete, which is this one here, absolute the column. We want to know the progress, which is this one here, and the last variable is the date that we've completed to, so I'm going to call this date complete, and we'll do this with the Workday International function. So we're going to start at the start date, and notice I can reference the variables that I've already declared, and I want to add the duration complete. My weekends are on Saturday and Sunday, so that's 1. Close Workday -1 is going to give me the correct date, comma. So they're all my variables. Now all I need to do is declare each of my formulas for the formatting. So I need one for the daily dates, one for the weekly dates, and one for the monthly dates. So let's start with the days format. This is using AND. So here I want to check that the progress equals 0. Remember, we're creating the format for tasks that haven't started, so the progress must be 0. And the current period is greater than or equal to the date complete. And the current period is less than or equal to the end date. Close parentheses on the and, comma, Alt Enter. And now I can write the formula for my weeks format. Now this has two dates, the start of the week and the end of the week. So we need or here. And then we're going to write two ands. So we're checking that the progress equals 0. And the current period is greater than or equal to the start date. And the current period is less than or equal to the end date. Or, another and, the progress equals 0. And the current period plus 6, which will take us up to the end of the week, is greater than or equal to the start date. And the current period plus 6 is less than or equal to the end date. Close parentheses on my and. I'm just going to Alt Enter, close parentheses on or, comma, Alt Enter, and now we can create the months format. This one also uses and to check that the progress equals 0, and I need to find the end of the month, so I'm going to use the EOMonth function to find the current date, end of month. 0 is going to give me the last day of the current month, and I'm checking that that's greater than or equal to the start date, and the current period is less than or equal to the end. Close parentheses on my month format, comma. So now I've written the formulas for my days format, weeks format, and months format. All I need to do is link them to the radio buttons that have been selected. So I can use the choose function to return the display period and return the correct formula. So I want the days format, the weeks format, and the months format. Close, choose, close, let, press enter. It hasn't given us an error, so that's good. Let's select the formula, Control C to copy, select my cell range, and then insert a new rule using a formula, Control V to paste it in, format. This one is applying a pink border to the cells, so click OK and OK. Now you'll notice that some of the weekend dates are formatted. We'll sort all of those out at the end, so let's not worry about that for now. Next, I need to set up the format for projects in progress. The formula checks that the progress is not 100% complete and that the current period is greater than or equal to the date of work completed so far, and the current period is also less than or equal to the end date. Now it uses the same variables as the previous formula. All I need to do is change the formulas for the days format, weeks format, and months format. So I'm just going to select those components and paste in my updated formula for the in progress format. I'm not going to step through it all. It should be fairly self-explanatory for you to read through because we've named all the variables. So I'll press enter just to check it evaluates. It does. So let's go ahead and Control A to select it, Control C to copy. And then let's select the cells that we want to format. And then new rule, use a formula, paste it in. The format is this pink fill color. Click OK and OK. You can see it's overridden some of the previous formats. Again, we're going to fix that at the end. So let's move on and we'll apply the format for the completed work. Now for the completed progress formula, we need to check that progress is greater than 0 and the start date and the date of work completed so far is within the current period, or the start date is less than the current period and the date of work completed so far is greater than the current period. This one's a little bit more complicated, but we're going to just copy and paste in the formula because the variables are the same. All I need to do is replace the days format, weeks, and months format in here, paste it in. Now you'll notice the months format here has 3 different formulas and they're all OR arguments. I'll leave you to work through them all. Let's press enter and make sure it evaluates. It does. So let's select the formula. I'll select the cells new rule, using a formula, paste it in. And the format here is this green fill color. OK and OK. All right, everything's looking a bit green, so let's go and fix that. All we have to do is go in and manage the rules and arrange them in the correct order. So the completed progress needs to go to the bottom. And then we have the work in progress, then the tasks that haven't started, our weekend formatting, and our grand total. We need to stop if it's true, and this one. Now click apply. You can see it now correctly formats all the cells. The green and the pink seem to run into one another, so let's just modify these formats and we'll add a white border. We just want the top and bottom formatted, so I'll click OK and OK, let's apply. All right, that looks better. Let's do that for the green one as well. So on the white format, I'll just remove anything that's there and reapply it. There we go. All right, that looks a bit better. Now we don't need the formula in the cell anymore, so let's delete that. And we'll just check that it's applying the formatting correctly for each period. So currently we've got the daily period selected. Weekly we get a more condensed view, and monthly even more so. I hope you found this tutorial useful. I know it was quite advanced, but you can download the Excel file containing the completed dashboard from the link here. And if you like this video, please give it the thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more. And why not share it with your friends who might also find it useful. Thanks for watching.